Big Zay.
Morning, Brad.
Morning, boys. What's going on?
Well, Max Crosby, he can lift up humans and throw them at quarterbacks. He can take quarterbacks, he can roll them up like a bunch of foil and dispose of them in a nearby waste can. He's just the most foreboding figure I've ever heard about in a football game. And he's a great player. I'm not underselling it. We've been hearing about it all week. How do you defend against a guy like him?
Well, you're going to get help for starters, right? You're going to pick and choose your spots in the game where you're going to attempt to solo block him on a passing play. I think it starts with that. And you're going to have to solo block him from time to time. Crosby's a hell of a player.
Right.
There's no question about that. He's got an extremely high motor. It reminds me a little bit of Kyle Vandenbosch. He used to play for the Detroit Lions. So he's not a guy that always defeats the tackle with that initial move to blow up the quarterback. There's a good chunk of his plays that come simply because he is relentless. And when you have him block initially, you better keep blocking him because he will find a way to fight off that block and impact the play. So they're going to have to be mindful of him. He's got a pair of sacks in 3 career games against the Bears, and it'll be interesting to see if the Raiders can mount some pressure with some other players up front, which that's where you get into trouble, where he's either running the quarterback into a sack for another player or he's cleaning up something that is created initially by a teammate.
Brad, we heard from Richard Hightower yesterday, and I think this is going to be a big part of this game that we haven't really addressed that much so far, but the Raiders are not very good at covering punts, and they have some special teams issues that have been exploited. How big of a factor do you think that will be on Sunday, and who specifically might benefit from it?
Well, the Raiders were god-awful on special teams last Sunday against the Commanders. They got beat badly in both the punt return game and the kickoff return game. I kind of poked around on that, asked a little bit. The feeling is that Pete Carroll coach team with special teams coordinator Tom McMahon, who's been around the league forever, will be much better this week. So the Bears would like to make that an edge for them and get Devin Duvernay going or Luther Burden, but you would imagine that the Raiders will work to clean that up a little bit. And the Bears had a pretty good special teams game this past week against Dallas, especially being able to pin in Cavante Turpin a little bit, the dangerous return man.
I got to tell you, it's extraordinary to me the age difference between the two coaches, right? You got Ben Johnson at the tender age of 39 going against Pete Carroll, who is 74?
74.
Yeah.
He turned 74 earlier this month, I believe.
That's extraordinary. Pete Carroll's extraordinary. He's like the kind of eternal teen. He's always chewing the gum, and he just is, a guy who's relentlessly positive and energetic. But Ben Johnson's pretty good in his own right. I know that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it is just a fact of the game that is kind of the age difference between the two guys is unbelievable.
Well, when Pete Carroll's name surfaced as a potential guy for the Bears, remember it was that was his age was a legitimate topic of conversation, and people who supported him was like, well, Pete Carroll's the youngest 73-year-old at the time. He has the energy. He bounces around like a guy that's in his 30s or 40s. Pete's going to need stamina to get that thing turned around with the Raiders. that is an organization that is drafted very poorly for a long stretch of time, made some really poor moves in free agency, and had unbelievable turnover on the coaching staff and in the front office. And so you look at what they've got across their two deep, and you're okay. How do they get this thing going? Man, it's going to take some time. And you say that, and you take a step back. Here's what might surprise some people, anyway. Because when you talk about the Raiders and how they've been for a period of time, an extended period of time, it's like not good, right? Among the worst in the league, right? Since 2020, the Raiders have got 7 more wins than the Chicago Bears.
Ouch. Why do you attribute that to?
Well, I just a lot of the same. I think oftentimes we get caught up in these conversations about, the Raiders and the Browns and the Jets, and people aren't understanding of, like, that's a conversation that the Bears are squarely in the middle of as well.
So, Brad, we heard from Dennis Allen, a former Raiders coach, yesterday, and each week it seems as if he has the same type of demeanor and approach. Yesterday he was somewhat, I think, demanding. I don't want to say critical, but he wasn't as impressed with Tyreek Stevenson's play. It sounded as if, as many others might have been, he challenged him to become more consistent, said he was inconsistent. Just curious what your take is on Dennis Allen and what you hear from him every Thursday after we've played a few games here.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it's somewhat similar to what you're hearing from Ben Johnson in terms of pushing players to become the best version of themselves, in terms of the consistency, and that's something that's legit and real with Tyreek. That's something that the previous coaching staff tried to push him along toward, and that's not just on the field during the game or on the field during practice. It's, every day in the facility. It's the preparation that goes into becoming a better pro. And they felt like some of the experiences in film study had kind of helped him along in that regard early in last season. And then you have the thing in Washington, and it's just kind of all out the window. So we'll see. There's a long season ahead. There's going to be an awful lot of playing time for Tyreek, and he's still got a ton to prove to a coaching staff that, to their credit, has, Tyreek doesn't have baggage with them. I think I said that at the beginning of the week with you guys. He's got like 8 pieces of checked luggage for everyone else at Hallis Hall. He's the guy that's coming up the line at O'Hare. So good game for him. He needs to forget about it and build off it.
This segment with Brad Biggs is sponsored by Estwing Professional Tools, made in the USA for over 100 years, estwing.com. Brad, last week, Caleb Williams was very good, and you saw 4 touchdown passes to 4 different players, and you saw him become the NFC Player of the Week. I'm just curious, how do you follow that? What is it, when we talk about consistency with Tyreek Stevenson, it's consistency with everyone, right? You would love to see the same thing from the linebacker that you saw last week, from the quarterback that you saw last week. There are a lot of people, and maybe the offensive line, that would like to kind of redo that performance.
Yeah, it's hopefully Caleb can build off of it, and he played really well. And I think there's going to be plays to be made against this Raiders team, especially when you look at the back 7 and some of the guys they're running out there. I mentioned the other morning, one of the starting cornerbacks is Caillou Blue Kelly, who was a 5th-round pick in 2023 and is on his 5th team. Like, that doesn't add up as a starter in the National Football League to me. So there's going to be opportunities for Caleb to put together another good game, I imagine. with help from the people around him. And if they play well, guys, they could be at 500 on the plane coming home from Las Vegas, which would be a nice reset when you think back to the butt kicking and drubbing they took in Detroit and how they were so poor at the end of that Minnesota game. So long ways to go. I mean, we've and it's the nature of the beast to analyze these games in a vacuum for a cycle of 7 days from one to the next. But long view, they're just getting started.
You're right. They could fly back from Vegas 2-2, and not everybody flies back from Vegas happy about breaking even. You know, that's
that's a victory of sorts. No
it really
question.
is. It'd be 500.
Yeah.
You'd take it. Brad,
Yeah.
ask you this. As we talked to you, listening to a Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric Football Friday, presented by your local Ford dealers and Potawatomi Casino Hotel. When you look at the Bears playing Benedict and potentially Trapillo if he's active, if Darnell Wright is compromised, and even if Darnell Wright does start, do you think they would be tempted to go more to the 6 offensive lineman alignment like they have done at times with Theo Benedict just because of the threat of Max Crosby that we've heard so much about this week? Or do you think that we'll not see that any more than we would in any other given game?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see any more of that. I mean, Max Crosby is a fun player to watch, the way he goes about the game. Let's not make Max Crosby and a couple of the other cats that the Bears are going to run into on the schedule this season, like Myles Garrett, like Micah Parsons. He's not at that level,
top 5,
in my opinion. So maybe we see a little bit of that with the lineman eligible, but no, I just I don't think they would approach it that way. That would be very surprising to me.
I'm curious when you think about just how you are going to line up that offensive line. What do you think Wright will be able to go? I guess we'll find out today if he can be limited in practice, if this elbow, how bad the injury is. We know they got the bye week after this game. I don't know if that influences things one way or another. You get 2 weeks for one game as opposed to the idea that you push it and then you get a week off. I'm just curious, is it Theo Benedict if he can't go because he's played, or would you I mean, you'll have Ozzie Trapillo active. Would you start him because of his size and his advantage as the bigger man at the right tackle position? What is your thinking on how you line up with or without Darnell Wright?
If Darnell Wright isn't available, and certainly I think you had to start really considering that possibility when he wasn't available for practice yesterday. Yeah. I firmly believe it's Theo Benedict. I don't think you pivot to the guy that you haven't given a uniform to in the previous 2 games. There's a reason why Theo Benedict has been the swing tackle the last 2 weeks. That's because the coaches have deemed him to be the best option for them in that situation. He's got out there and played. He's gotten a little taste of action. I think he had 11 snaps this past week against the Cowboys. I see it as his job, his opportunity in this situation. And if that does come to fruition, obviously Ozzie will be in uniform, but he would be the swing tackle in this case. Like, it's a pretty easy A to B for me that Theo Benedict is the guy based on what they've told us and shown us the previous 2 weeks in terms of how they're going to do it. Now, could that change later on in the year? Certainly. Everything is subject to change, and you have to be even more on your toes looking for it when you've got a new coaching staff and young players involved. But right now, it would be Theo in my mind if Darnell can't go.
Brad, we saw again last night, Thursday Night Football, the Seahawks win in a walk-off with a 53-yard field goal, which seems to be more and more routine as we have talked about over the weeks. And I just wonder, where's your confidence level if the Bears are in their home away from home, Allegiant Stadium, which is going to be the next stadium they have in Arlington Heights going to be modeled after. But if they take the field and they've got 3 seconds on the clock and they need a field goal to win a game that's from 54 yards, where's your confidence in Cairo Santos to do that? Do what everybody seems to be doing in the NFL.
Well, Cairo has been pretty good from distance for a while now, and I know he had the kick that he missed in the opener from 50 yards even. But you go back and check him out over the previous 3 seasons, and I think he was like 19 of 22 from 50 yards or more. So he's now 19 of 23 from 50 yards or more. So I think it would be relatively confident that he could do it. Cairo had a really good game last week when you think about what he did with kickoffs against Cavante Turpin. He opened the game with what they call the dirty ball that resulted in a touchback to the 20-yard line. He was able to pin Turpin in the corner for one of the kickoffs, which was planned. That's how it was supposed to look in Detroit when it went out of bounds. And you're seeing other guys kick it out of bounds, too. And then he was also able to kick away successfully from Turpin a couple times to Miles Sanders. So he had a really good game from a kickoff standpoint. And he's a guy that's always kind of responded pretty well. And people forget it wasn't too long ago. This guy made 40 consecutive field goal attempts. So we'll see. They've got Jake Moody on the practice squad. My confidence in him would be low in that situation, just because I haven't seen a lot of him and knowing what he had been through with the 49ers.
I think that Luther Burden jumped from 12 snaps to 17, I believe, from one week to the next. What's his role this week? And is he a specialist? In other words, will it be like an end around or a flea flicker? Like what? How do you use him? They got some pretty good starting receivers. Are they happy with his development, and what are their intentions with him?
Yeah, I think the intentions with Luther Burden are for him to become a larger part of the offense as this season goes. It's been pretty consistent. 18 snaps in the opener, 12 in Detroit, 17 this past week. If Colston Loveland isn't 100%, I think he hasn't practiced this week. I think there's a chance he's available on Sunday. But if let's say Colston Loveland is available, but he doesn't get quite as many snaps as usual because of the hip, that could be opportunities for more 11 personnel, potentially Burden on the field. If Loveland doesn't play at all, maybe that's less 12 personnel, more 11, which would then create opportunities for Burden or OZ. So I think we're going to see Luther's participation gradually increase and his snap count potentially get into the mid-20s, touching 30 by the end of the year. They got a lot of guys, and more importantly than how many plays he's out there for, it's the impact that he has, and we saw the impact against the Cowboys.
Less than a minute, Brad. What's your pick?
It's dangerous to put a lot of belief in the Bears right now because how they played and how just terrible the Cowboys are. Awful on defense. Awful. But I can't get over the depth chart on defense off when you don't look at the defensive line for the Raiders. It's a collection of cast-offs and some misfits. I think there'll be plays all over the field to be made for the Bears. So I'm going to pick the Bears to win the game, like 28-20, guys, something like that. Where are you guys at with this one?
I said 30-24 Bears.
Yeah, I had the Bears, I think, 29-26.
Okay.
But
So
I'm
we're
with you.
thinking high score. Yeah.
Here's my request. I asked if there was any chance I could wait for the first quarter because I think they kind of need to score a little, and then they can take control of the game. They'll have a good crowd there, as you're aware of. There'll be tons of Bear fans on your flights, and it just feels like the kind of game.
Every visitor has a great crowd at Allegiant Stadium.
Yes.
Like all of them. All of them.